Ash reviewed all of Palmer's rights with him, and Palmer gave up each one. Ash asked Palmer if he was pleading guilty to felony murder because he was indeed guilty. Palmer only answered, "Yes, sir." Ash imposed a sentence of life in prison with the possibility of parole after 51 years served. Ash dismissed several other counts after the sentence was handed down. Palmer did receive credit for time already served since his arrest in 2001. As with Taylor, Palmer couldn't leave well enough alone and filed an appeal. In August of 2005, Palmer filed a standard appeal form asking for an appeal based on the following grounds. First, his conviction was based on a plea involuntarily entered without understanding the nature and consequences. Second, his confession was coerced. The evidence against him was obtained in violation of the U.S. Constitution. His right against self-incrimination was violated. The prosecutors failed to disclose evidence favorable to him. His attorneys were ineffective, and his sentence was excessive. He was not represented by counsel when he filed his appeal, but he did ask the court for representation, and Judge Ash appointed Bill Bullock to represent him and scheduled a hearing for September. Finally, in June of 2006, Judge Ash dismissed the appeal after Palmer declined to testify in his own behalf. It's up to Palmer to prove his points, and when he didn't, his appeal was dismissed. Palmer now resides in the Morgan County Correctional Complex in East Tennessee and is eligible for parole in February of 2054. He will be 74 years old, should he live that long. Following the verdicts, calm returned to Smyrna. The town continued to grow and add more businesses and more residents. Lowry Street is no longer the commercial center of town. That belongs to Sam Ridley Parkway, which sports a Super Target, Malco Cinemas, and enough restaurants to keep you happy for months. Captain D's now has 2 locations in town, one on Lowry Street and a newer location at Exit 70 on Interstate 24. The BP station is now a Citgo. They sell knockoff sports jerseys, and the Shoney's finally gave it up early in 2019 and will eventually become another restaurant. In the years following the murders, Rick Hall retired from the Smyrna Police Department following 25 years of service and being named the Crime Stoppers Officer of the Year in 2001. He is now a highly successful agent for Farmers Insurance. The commercials say, "At Farmers, we've seen a lot." Rick Hall has truly seen it all. If you are in Middle Tennessee and have insurance needs, call Rick Hall. The man will take care of you. Police Chief Mike Beach also retired. The Smyrna Town Council named Kevin Arnold as chief, and he continues to serve to this day. If there is another chief of police in this state or anywhere with as much integrity as Kevin Arnold, I would like to meet them. That person may not exist. Detectives John Lear and Todd Spearman are still with the department. Spearman was promoted to captain, and he now works with the department's administration. Detective Jeff Peach is still with the town of Smyrna. He went to law school, became an attorney, and is now head attorney for the town of Smyrna. There have been other crimes in Smyrna, but nothing that compares to those of July 2000. In closing, I would like to extend my appreciation to Rick Hall and Todd Spearman for their time they spent with me, as well as others who shared their recollections of the murders. The archives of newspapers.com was invaluable in my research. For the officers of the Smyrna Police Department and all of those who keep us safe, we cannot say thank you enough. If any of the family members of the victims hear this, you still have our sympathies and our prayers. The Snell family set the bar for families of victims of violent crime. Their constant presence in the courtroom reminded the judge, the prosecutors, and the defense that they cared and they wouldn't give up until justice was found for their son. In my interview with Rick Hall, I could see a faraway and pained look 19 years after the crimes as he described the lives lost.
The biggest thing that I told, and I've been in a lot of schools and a lot of speaking engagements where I've taken this, and there was bad things that were said about Troy Snell, that he was a drug dealer and he'd done this drug deal with them and all this stuff, but there was nothing ever said it was. And then Brian Spate, had a background of lower poverty out of Washington, D.C. and come down here and had a daughter and was trying to better himself and had a good girlfriend and was headed down the road. He was being a manager and, his life could have been a whole lot different and he was doing something good out of it. And then, then you had Scott Myers that was there, and he was a family man and a wife and 3 daughters, and had already retired from one. I think of myself now being retired in law enforcement. He had already retired from one company and was a corporate employee, in the ice cream business, to going at Captain D's and going through the managerial program. And, he lived in Memphis and he was working at that store and he was done. He went to his hotel and was going to pack up and go back. He already called, we didn't have cell phones. He had called his wife from the store and said, honey, this is my last night and I'm going to be checking out and I'll see you in the morning. But because they were short that night, an employee didn't show up that was a closer, he thought, because of the kind of man he was, he went, packed up, checked out of his room and went back and was helping close. He should have never been there. Never should have been there. But, those are the behind the scenes things that you learn about families and, the rock that he was to his family. And, I get emotional now just thinking about what all they had. Here you got a kid that's a senior in high school and actually working. The percentage of kids then that worked was low. And he come from a hard-working family, and his sister and his mom and dad instilled that in him. He was out there, and then like you asked earlier, people wanted to run around and shame him in some way and say that about him when there's absolutely no proof ever that one person stepped forward to say that. Not one. And it's a shame.
One word of warning to those who think Smyrna, Tennessee would be a good place to commit a crime: don't even think about it. If you commit a crime here, every member of the department, from the chief of police on down through the ranks, will not rest until you are caught, arrested, and prosecuted. Just ask Percy and Bebe. Hot Nights and Cold Bodies is a production of Grave Undertakings Monument Restoration and Cleaning Service. See our Facebook page at Grave Undertakings. If you've got a grave, you've got a grave undertaking. We will visit with you again on Hot Nights and Cold Bodies.